One of the tricky aspects of setting up our projects for creating custom poses for furniture items is how do we set up the furniture item itself in relation to the posable avatars, the rigs, to make it easier on ourselves to pose our avatars with respect to however many seat nodes there are. So what we want to do is essentially create the project or set the project up so that it's easy, relatively speaking, to position the avatar at our seat node spots. And we can do that basically two ways. So the first way, and this is generally the way that we want to do this because we don't necessarily want to move the avatar rig, because that has potential problems in of itself, moving the avatar, but we'll get to that in the second way we can do this. So the first way we can do is, once we've imported, so we've appended or we've just copy pasted the contents of our furniture item from another scene into our pose project, because we are using the animation tool which has the avatars. So what we're basically doing is creating an animation tool project and then copy pasting or appending our furniture assets. So that's all the seat nodes and the meshes themselves, bringing those into our animation project. So what we have to do, again, the two ways we can do this. The first way is we need to set up the furniture item so that it's easy to position the furniture as a whole, so that's all the nodes, relative to the avatar. And this is at grid center 0, 0, 0 on the XYZ. So basically what that means we need to do is grab all our furniture elements. So we can do that in this scene, in this project, or we can do it in the furniture project, and then when we copy paste or append, it'll bring all the relationships in. So we select all our components and then shift click the root node. We make sure that this is the last object that's selected, and then what we can do is object, parent, object. And what this will do is link all our selected objects, our satellite objects or our child objects, to the root node. And what that then facilitates is our being able to use the root node, let's select it, as a control to move the entire furniture item. So this basically acts as a positional control object. So let's just undo that, because what we can then do, viewpoint top, so that's numpad 7 if you have the numpads. So let's say we want to position this node at grid 0 because we want to create a pose where the avatar is facing outwards from our furniture item, because that's the direction or the orientation of the seat nodes. Don't need the catcher and pitcher, but that's useful for determining that or indicating the orientation of the seat node, because those are generally positioned forward of the seat node, so we know that that is the forward direction. So using the control node or the root node, all we need to do is use our widgets and position the seat node where it needs to be. Like so, because the origin of each of our seat nodes is located at the center of our wireframe, and that needs to be positioned on grid center. And once we've got that in place, we can then create our pose while maintaining the integrity of the default positioning of the avatar rig. We can create our pose relative to that spot, and we know that our avatar is going to be in the correct position, location, to that corresponding seat node. And of course, if we need to do that with another one, all we need to do is select our root node, top. So let's say we want to go with this one. Rotate that around using our root node. It's gone off screen a little bit. Like so. And then we can create a pose for that seat node. So when everything is joined together so that the root is the parent object of all the other elements of the furniture item, so the meshes and the nodes, we use the root node as our control object to position the seat nodes relative to grid center. So that's the first way we can do this. The second way, let's just reset all of that. So the second way we can do this is using the avatar rigs themselves. Now, there's a big caveat with this, and we need to make sure that whenever we do this, we are in the correct mode, which is object mode. So the rig highlights this orange color. That indicates that we are in object mode. If we do this in any other mode, it may capture some positional or locational data in the timeline, which means when we export the pose, it might include any position information related to the armature as an object or the rig as an object, and we want to try and avoid that, which is why we generally do the first way to do this rather than the second approach. So with the second approach, all we need to do, select the rig, again make sure that we are in object mode, shift click a node that we might want to use. So let's say we use one of these, so shift click the node. So we've got two objects selected, the armature or the rig and the destination or the target. Going to object, snap, and then we want selection to active. So object, snap, selection to active. And what that will do is literally what it says. It will snap the rig to our target object. So snap, selection to target. What we can then do is use our widgets to manipulate the rig and position that relative to the seat node. We can then, as before, create our pose, and that ensures that the pose is relative to that seat node and its location relative to the furniture item. But again, to reiterate, we need to make sure that whenever we move the rig, so let's choose a different node. Let's go with this one. So select the rig, shift click the node, object, snap, selection to active. Make sure we select the rig and then position or rotate that relative to the orientation of the seat node. And of course we can go into view top to make this easy to do, so that we can remove all perspective and we're looking down on top of our objects. But again, make sure we're in object mode when doing this, because we do not want to capture any location or positional rotation information relative to the avatar. So that is basically the two ways that we can set up our furniture items relative to creating custom poses using the animation tool.